Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about our top 10 UFC fights of all time, and we'll start off with some honorable mentions.
Yeah, so these ones missed out bunch of bangers. So these ones were close. But first, Burns and Chimaev, which was that was UFC 273, I believe. And yeah, Chimaev came in steaming hot, only having one punch on his face, just one punch on him in general in the UFC up until then. But then Burns showed his veteran skills, and that was absolute war.
Yeah, nobody gave Burns a chance in that fight. Well, next honorable mention, Aldo versus Mendez 2. It's a very underrated fight. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but yeah, an absolute banger. Like from the minute the fight started, Aldo got knocked down, Mendez came out steaming, and yeah, just an absolute banger.
Yeah, no, it's a great fight, that one. And the final honorable mention, Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit, where title fight, I think UFC 195, and very close fight, which split a lot of opinions about. That was just a 5 round ball. They were swinging literally right to the end, and then you have that picture of them where they're on the cage. So just missed out, but let's get into the top 10.
Yes, we'll start off with Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 2 at UFC 202, and this was McGregor's second fight with Diaz. He just lost in the first fight, which was a massive upset to a lot of people, and because he gassed, and yeah, Diaz was just had better stamina, and yeah, Diaz just outworked him in that fight, and yeah, this second fight was even better than the first. And yeah, McGregor knocked Diaz down 3 times in the fight. He was bloody. McGregor took a lot of shots in that fight as well.
Yeah, it took a lot, and he kind of had that criticism of gassing, and he did gas a bit at points in this fight, but he survived the full 5 rounds, and it was just a war, with blood on both guys. And it was a bit of like a
Yeah,
side quest. He was supposed to be fighting for the lightweight belt, but he's like, nah, I need to get this one back in blood, and then he won. It was a
he
close
did.
fight, but it's a great fight.
Yeah, those leg kicks were massive for him. Probably one of the main reasons why he won that fight. But yeah, just an absolute banger of a fight.
Yeah,
All right, and now we'll move on to number 9. We got Gaethje versus Johnson. It was Gaethje's first fight in the UFC, and like not many people knew who he was before that fight. He didn't really have any expectations, and after this fight, everybody knew who he was.
yeah, and a lot of Gaethje fights to pick from. Even another honorable mention, you could say the one against Chandler more recently, but for me, this is Gaethje's most entertaining fight, and it was his first fight. Even though they're all entertaining, this was just, it was so absurd. They were going back and forth. Like, you had no idea who was going to win. And at one point, it looked like Gaethje was out of there, but he came back. He showed his toughness in his first fight, and yeah, this was so good.
Yeah, and he became an instant fan favorite after this fight. Like the volume and just the pace of this fight for a 2 round fight was just crazy.
Yeah, literally, probably the best 2 round fight that's ever been in the UFC that I can think of. That I've seen anyway. So yeah, number
Yeah.
9.
And then so we'll move on to number 8. We got Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Probably not probably, it definitely is the greatest women's fight of all time.
100%. Yeah, we're showing some women respect here, and these lot really put on for the women because yeah, it's clearly the best woman fight ever, and it was just a 5 round striking war, back and forth, close fight. Had everything. Had a bit of like some next level shit on Joanna's head. That little lump.
Yeah, she got battered well, it was a very close fight, but that hematoma was so bad. And yeah, she took a lot of shots, but so did Weili. Weili was bruised after the fight as well. Joanna actually landed more strikes than Weili.
Yeah, that's
It was
surprising, but
a
you
high
just
pace,
yeah,
all the fight. It was so intense, and yeah, but the there's the pressure and the volume of Zhang probably won the fight.
yeah. Bad people hate on women's fight, and like rightfully so sometimes, but these lots shown that when they're striking at that type of pace, it can be really entertaining.
And on to number 7, and this was a fight during lockdown, during COVID era, and that's Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, in the apex. So this is when you could hear all the punches, and this was a good fight to hear all that shit because they were cracking each other. This is like another 5 round war, and these lot lost so many brain cells in this fight because some of the exchanges were just absolutely brutal. And like you seen the pictures afterwards, they were just beat up so badly, but it was good entertainment, to be honest.
Yeah, and surprisingly, neither of them knocked the other down. Like, there were so many moments in the fight where it
Really?
looked like Hooker nearly had Poirier out there, Poirier nearly had Hooker out there. And especially, like, I think it was one of the middle rounds where Hooker just had Poirier against the cage and he was just
Yeah,
wailing on
I
him.
think it was the third round, like few, maybe 10 extra seconds might have been over, but yeah, Poirier showed how tough he was, and he kind of battered Hooker later on. But
Yeah, it's such a good fight. It's one that doesn't get talked about much nowadays, but yeah,
yeah,
it's still one of the best fights of all time. And
100%.
Hooker showed how good he was as well in that fight.
Yeah, yeah, Hooker showed his toughness, and I think probably you could say the best Apex fight, and not many people can really disagree with that.
Yeah. And now we'll go to a more recent fight for number 6, Glover versus Jury. And this was for the light heavyweight belt as well.
Yeah, UFC 275, and I remember watching this at 6 a.m. or some stupid time, and this actually just woke me up because this fight was mental, especially the fifth round. Like Glover was just whacking Jury around, and then he gets that rear naked with no hooks in. It was absolutely crazy and unexpected, to be honest. Like Glover was going to win that, but then Jury
Yeah,
just pulled out the submission out of nowhere.
Jury just got it out of nowhere. Like, at the way the fight was going, nobody thought Jury was going to win. Everyone thought Glover had it in the bag. He'd win on decision, and then Jury pulled the submission out of nowhere.
Yeah, even in this fight, even like some really cool scrambles and just grappling exchanges as well. And Jury showed he's got a bit of a good ground game, and Glover, we already know that from Glover, but it was such an interesting fight. A lot of random shit was happening. But
And it
yeah,
was like, it's one of those fights where nobody would have expected it to be as good as it was, and it ended up
yeah,
being really good.
definitely surpassed expectation by a lot from when it was booked.
Yeah, definitely. So on to number 5, we've got Cub Swanson versus Doohoo Choi. And this is just one of the greatest fights of all time. If you ask some people, they might have this as their number 1 as well. It's just a 3-round war between a veteran versus, well, back then, Doohoo Choi was a upcoming young star.
Yeah, like yeah, it's a bit of a story of a veteran against a young guy. But even though Cub Swanson is still killing it at 41 now, but it was just kind of one. Again, maybe people didn't expect it to be this good. Like it's one of the best fights of all time, and no one can really deny that. And it's like one that it doesn't really have two huge stars in. Like Cub Swanson is popular, but maybe another time we can do an underrated top 10. But this one just had to be in here because they were going back and forth. You never knew who was going to win, really. They looked like they could finish each other, so it was absolutely
Yeah,
wild to
they
watch.
both had each other hurt at like loads of points in the fight. But I feel like towards the end, just Choi was knackered. He was so tired.
He was
And
finished. Like when he was falling over and Swanson hit him with the hammer fist, and
yeah. And Swanson just like kept up in the pace at the end, and he just put a pace on him in that last round. And he did he's just such a dynamic striker. He's an underrated striker. And Choi's boxing was very good in that fight as well.
yeah, and like Swanson had a bunch of the spinning attacks and whatnot, and yeah, very dynamic, very fun. And even though it was a close war, like by the end it was clear Swanson won, but still very close, very fun.
Yeah. So on to number 4, we've got Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington 1. And this was just a great night of fights as well. But yeah,
Yeah,
this fight was definitely the fight of the night.
yeah, 100%. And this is probably, if I'm like recollecting the fight that surpassed expectation the most, because maybe people thought it could have been a slower paced fight or just they kind of cancel each other out with their wrestling acumen, but it's the opposite. They just didn't wrestle at all. I don't think either shot a takedown in the full fight, and they were just scrapping for 5 rounds. It was crazy. Colby broke his jaw. They both showed good boxing. Like not the best technique, but it was such a good striking war.
Yeah, I feel like after this fight as well, Usman's boxing improved a lot. Like he started becoming a lot more confident in his hands because of this fight. And it was just like it's a classic wrestler versus wrestler, and they just end up striking for the full fight.
Yeah, no, you see that sometimes two grapplers when there's like they might cancel each other out, but usually you'll see a takedown or two from either side and they kind of gauge it, but he's not even attempted, they're just straight scrapping and like the bad blood, the build up that also like I think it just culminated in the fight, it just made it so entertaining. And Usman with the finish as well, it was like so tense and very entertaining fight.
Yeah, and Colby showed heart in that fight. Like obviously we know he's got one of the best gas tanks in the UFC and he can keep a pace going for 5 rounds, but like he showed heart. Usman landed loads of big shots on him and Colby
Yeah,
just fought through it. And even
100%.
then in the fifth round he broke his jaw and he still looked like he wanted to carry on. But
Yeah,
Usman just hits very hard.
yeah, people say he talks a lot and whatnot, and he's a bit of a coward, but you can't be a coward and put up that type of performance. You were getting cracked by someone that hits that hard, so yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah. So now at number 3, we've got John Jones versus Gustafsson one, which still to this day is John's like the most John's ever gone through in a fight. Like he went through a lot of he took a lot of damage, and it was in the early rounds especially. It was very close.
Yeah, it was close early rounds. It's close the whole fight, and it's one that a lot of people think Gus should have won, and it can be a hard one to score. But realistically, I think coming in, Gus was a big underdog, and he kind of just showed like how good he was. Like he's kind of on that similar type of level. Obviously, Jones went on to have a better career, but at the moment, or in the fight, it was just very close. Two tall guys going back and forth, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Jones had to dig really deep in this fight as well. Like Gus came out and his boxing, which has always been his best attribute, like Gus was doing very well with his boxing on the feet, cutting angles, and he was landing a lot on Jones in the first couple of rounds. And he even took Jones down, like which DC wasn't even able to do in the first fight. And yeah,
Yeah,
like Gus
first guy to
was
take
the
Jones down,
first
wasn't
guy
it,
to
as
take
well?
Jones down. Yeah, which nobody expected. And yeah, Gus was doing really well, and I feel like towards the later rounds, Jones dug deep, and he started showing like his how good he actually was.
Yeah, a lot of dynamic techniques as well, like that spinning elbow, obviously, which he landed in the fourth, and that was a really big shot.
Yeah, that I feel like when he landed that elbow as well, it really changed the momentum, and like from that point on, he kind of dominated the rest of the fight.
Yeah,
So at number 2, we've got Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum, and this was very close to also being number 1 because this was just a 5-round war, one of the greatest fights of all time.
yeah, definitely one of the greatest. And bias as a Nigerian, as a Adesanya enjoyer, love this fight. But I think like even if you dislike Adesanya and you watch this fight, like you love it because it has a bit of everything, and it was the tallest middleweight at the time against the shortest, so it's a bit of a interesting matchup. But then the striking exchanges are so interesting in this fight. They hurt each other multiple times, and they both showed a lot of heart. They both had to dig deep, and then Adesanya had that amazing moment in the fifth round where he just kind of dug deeper and just unleashed a bunch of strikes on Gastelum, knocked him down about 4 times in that round, I think it was.
Yeah, he knocked him down loads of times throughout the fight, and I think Gastelum did knock Adesanya. Well, it didn't count, but he did knock Adesanya down once in that fight.
Yeah, in the first round, clipped him with the right hook, and then Izzy fell on the cage. But yeah, he even hit a head kick as well. Like I said before, shortest guy hitting a head kick on the tallest guy in the division is
And that
very
dropped
random.
Izzy as well. And I don't know what Gastelum thought when he went for the takedown after landing that head
Yeah,
kick.
that could have really been a different result. Like, if potentially just put a barrage and could have potentially got Izzy out of there, but he didn't show that IQ. But still a great fight. Also, even in the fifth round as well, the guillotine and the triangle choke Izzy almost had as well. Like, no one expected that as a kickboxer, almost landing submissions in the championship fight. But It's so entertaining, like full fight, thrilling, back and forth.
Yeah, and it was just a great night of MMA as well, like with the co-main event, Dustin Poirier versus Max
Yeah,
Holloway.
that probably gives this fight a better type of memory as well, since he's on such a good card. But like, that's even a fight you could mention as well, Poirier Holloway, like being top 20 or so. But yeah, we got this one number two. Great fight.
So for our greatest fight of all time, I'm pretty sure everybody knew what fight would be number one. It's Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald 2, the greatest UFC fight of all time. I'm pretty sure this fight's caused so many people to become fans of the UFC. It's just a war. That's all you can say to describe it. A war.
What is the best way to describe it? Yeah, and it's not even one of the fights that has the most strikes landed, but it's just one where it's absolutely brutal. And then they're both shown great skill. McDonald had Lawler hurt a lot of times against the cage and whatnot. Lawler was coming back. It's just a back and forth type of one.
Yeah, it's like Lawler took all of McDonald's biggest shots. McDonald took all of Lawler's biggest shots in those early rounds as well. It's just when he broke his nose, like you could tell that affected McDonald massively, and he couldn't, especially in the fifth round when he got hit with that jab. When he got dropped, he just couldn't carry on. Like the pain was way too much, and he was really busted up, and so was Lawler. Lawler had a split lip.
Yeah,
And they both were they both still wanted to fight. Like they both looked like they had the stamina to carry on, even though obviously they'd gone 5 rounds.
yeah, and that it showed so much heart, and you can't really even say anything about McDonald with the nose at the end there because he took so much damage. But from this fight, just even the imagery is just so iconic. Like seeing that picture of McDonald's face at the end of the fourth round with his face all bloody and he looks like a zombie, crazy. Or seeing
Yeah,
Lawler's lip just
he
dangling off
went
his
through
mouth.
2 rounds with a broken nose as well. Like you can't doubt his heart. He fought through 2 rounds with a broken nose, and Lawler isn't someone who hits weak. Like he's a hard hitter.
Yeah, proper power puncher. And I think just the best way to sum this fight up is just like when they squared off, I think at the end of the fourth round. And it's just such an iconic moment. Kind
Yeah,
of,
it's just a fight full of heart and
yeah.
just a badass fight, really.
And yeah, if you watch UFC, everybody's watched this. It's like, I think this has to be number one, definitely.
Yeah, it's unanimous. But yeah,
But yeah,
so that's our top 10. If you guys have any different thoughts or if you agree or disagree with our list, just write down any fights that you think we've missed in the comments. And
yeah, say what you think's your favourite. Also, we've missed a lot of fights off of here, but these are kind of more bigger names. We have a lot of underrated type of fights which we could do in another video. But yeah, thanks for watching.
don't forget to like and subscribe.